All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Gaia Soars. And this week, I'm very honored to have Dawn DelVecchio as my guest. A little bit about Dawn. Dawn DelVecchio is an MA who has been on a path of spiritual awakening for more than 37 years. She is the founder of Return of the Priestess, a speaker series, and the lineage bearer of MotherSpirit Priestess Initiation training. Dawn holds a bachelor's degree in women's studies, a master's degree in shamanic intuitional practices, and is the number one Amazon best-selling author of the book Spirit, Mind, and Money. As a professional writer for more than 20 years, Dawn uses her skills today in order to support women who are awakening to their true spiritual gifts during our planetary ascension so that they may own their sovereign power to lead with love. Whew. Dawn, you've got a lot of wonderful experience in your background there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Kimrâh, thank you so much for having me. Really, it is an honor and a pleasure to be visiting with you again and having another deep dive conversation about the times we're in and the divine feminine. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And so just so you know, guys, I will be featured this year on The Rise of the Priestess with Dawn, and I'm so grateful to be able to work in to work in servitude of the collective as part of one of the voices on the program. And so I just want to start off with asking you, Dawn, how did you come to the idea of having the Rise of the Priestess, and what gave you the idea that the divine feminine was rising, and did that have anything to do with the choice of the name?
Yeah. Well, the choice of the name came in near the end of 2019 or mid to the end of 2019. I can't remember. But the rise of the divine feminine, my awareness of that started back in 1984 when I had a home birth and started a mother support group, or became part of a mother support group that we began exploring topics of the divine feminine. And I know that you're a card reader and an oracle reader. You may be familiar with the MotherSpirit tarot deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the way each of the suits has a different cultural background, and it's all about the divine feminine and the goddess and the ancient patriarchal religions that they were all the mother religions.
Right.
So as a group, we began really discovering our history and moving into ceremony, sitting in sacred circles, sharing. And that was the beginning. That was Mother Spirit, which, with all those women's permission, I am the bearer of that lineage as the youngest in the group.
Wow.
Of that original group all those years ago. We had all in 1984 had home births, as I may have said.
Oh,
So, so that journey, has taken, as life does over many, many years, we go through many experiences. But the tarot and sacred feminine archetypal energy and the goddess and ceremony were all parts of my life throughout, even in my warrior years, because I spent many years as a progressive combative martial arts teacher and competitor. So
Wow.
I really have that masculine aspect as well cultivated in me. And what happened was, fast forward through many life experiences and living overseas and stuff, I was making an effort to build my own business because I've never been very good at working for others. And I knew I'm sort of wired to be an entrepreneur. But had a lot of money wounding stuff and a lot of uncertainty about how I should go about doing it. So I was spending an inordinate amount of money on very high-end coaching, sort of really beyond my level. And they were really navigating me to be more of a business coach. And so I was, I had the suits and the bra and the makeup and the going to all the events and handing out the business cards. It was so not me. If those of you who know me, like I'm pretty organic and earthy and natural and a hippie. And but I was like, right, I have to, make a living and do something with my life. And it wasn't until 2016, I was speaking at a conference in Bali, that there were all these women there who were talking about being a priestess and the goddess. And I was like, what is this? Like, I've been a priestess for years. It's not something that you do as a business and a leadership, but it is. And I
But it
didn't know
is.
that. So that was my pivot. That was when I really began slowly shedding this belief that I had to do what I didn't love and work against the tide to try and get clients. And I mean, there are wonderful business coaches out there. I got nothing against it, but that was not my soul mission, right?
Not for you, right?
Yeah. So over time, like a lot of healing, a lot of deep devotional practice, really reincorporating a lot of my sacred practices that I had let go by the wayside as I was striving to climb this entrepreneurial ladder. This all helped me, and I started getting guidance. I started being able to clairaudiently hear my guides, and this real gentle direction back into a more feminine receptivity of receiving, like being still, receiving, and then moving from that place rather than getting an idea in my head and going, right, I got to make it happen. Yeah, that whole
scurry. Yeah.
Yeah, that the scurry and the paradigm that's really going away now, this unbalanced head only paradigm. So then somewhere in 2019, I literally woke up one morning and heard Return of the Priestess. And because I have been in internet marketing and business and copywriting and all that for years, I knew what to do. You buy the URL and then you sit on it. So that's what I did. But I knew really what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a summit or speaker series. And I was really kind of quaking in my boots because it was going to be my coming out of the priestess broom closet event. And they cost a lot of money. They are a lot of work to do. I don't know if you've done one, but I end up having all these speakers. We've got 32 speakers this year.
Wow.
It's a big undertaking, and I had, I think that this thing that sometimes we have. What if I have a party and nobody comes? That was my fear.
It's a real feeling, though. It's a very real feeling.
Real.
Yeah,
It totally is real.
yeah.
So I was quite afraid, and then again, Divine Mother sort of brought in beautiful opportunities for me. So as the year was drawing to a close, I had a phone call from someone whom I knew, a woman who said, hey, remember me? We met at that retreat in Sedona. Well, my husband and I just moved here, and it's almost Christmas, and we were wondering if you have a recommendation for a Christmas dinner. Well, every year, my husband's a former chef, and every year we have a Christmas dinner. So I said, well, I think you should come to ours since you just contacted me. So she
In our
came.
house. Right.
Yeah, she came. It turns out she's a priestess who's a sacred business coach and had developed a course on how to run summits. And I had been looking into how to run summits by people who do it in that very masculine, rigid, driving way. You got to have X number of speakers. They've got to have a minimum of 5,000 list, and they can't come. And
Right.
and you to buy these programs is also very expensive.
Right.
So they were just feeling so dissonant. So this was the thing. Like we were sitting there talking, and I said, well, here's my idea, Return of the Priestess. And she was like, I've got goosebumps all over me. I feel this. So I was like, yeah, I know I do too, but I'm just scared. She goes, we're going to work it out. You're going to go through this course. I'll teach you how to do it. So that's kind of how it came about. Now, we had no idea December 24th, 2019, what was about to roll out in the world.
Right.
So I just got together with my tech VA to say, all right, Lisa, I'm going to do it. She's the one who does all the technology in the background. So I'm thinking the spring, let's carve out some dates. We carved out the dates. Who would have thought that was when we were in the thick of the lockdown? This is divine intervention. So what happened was me thinking, what if I build it and nobody comes, which I mitigated by saving money for it. I was like, right, I have the money to spend. If I lose all the money, I'll make it up again some way, somehow.
You'll break even. It's fine.
I'll break even. I'll write it off as an expense, a loss.
Right.
I'm not going to lose my shirt over this because I squirreled away money.
Smart. Right.
Yeah. So long and the short of it, there were so many women all over the world who were locked down, isolated, and had a lot of free time on their hands. We knocked it out of the park. And I built my list, which is the whole point of a summit, with genuine women who wanted to make a difference in the world. And I had 30 speakers from all over the world, elders, wisdom elders, all different, ethnicities. It was an amazing experience. And we donated 50% of the sales, because it's a free event, but people can choose to buy it. 50% of the sales went to a charitable cause that I had personally vetted. So
Right.
we not only did we lift, not only did I get lifted, I was able to lift as I rose, which
Perfect.
is my theme, lift as we rise. That's like my life theme.
I love
So
it.
there you have my long-winded story. That's how it came about.
That's beautiful. And I just want to say that first, I want to say thank you for not being afraid, right?
Mm.
Because even though you were
Ooh.
afraid, you had the courage to just squirrel it away and go, whatever. I'm just gonna put all my eggs in this basket and have faith, right? So
Yeah.
thank you for that first and foremost. I know many of us pivoted in December and March of 2020 when all of this went down, and
Mhm.
myself included. I was at the time, I was opening an art business for my book. So I had written an inspirational poetry book with my artwork in it. And I was going to start doing all these book signings and all this stuff. And then
Wow.
everything
I
shut
didn't
down.
know that.
Yep.
Wow.
Everything shut down. I mean, I had it signed up for the Miami Book Fair, all this great stuff, right? So that
Yeah.
went down the hill. So I had to pivot. And out of that came Ascension Coaching. Out of that, that's where the Ascension Coaching came. So I just use my book in other ways to utilize it as, authority and credibility and stick withedness, that type of stuff, because that's what capitalism wants, like, can you stick
Right.
with it?
Right. Right.
so
But
so that brings us back.
what's needed is the Ascension coaching right now.
Yes, but that's what's needed, right? And so don't you find it fascinating how many synchronicities will come along the way when you are entering into an endeavor that is spirit led? For instance, just the way that we came across each other. A random woman shows up in my Facebook DMs. I normally ignore all of those people because they're
Uh-huh.
scammers from Nigeria, like, weird stuff,
Uh-huh.
right? And she just says, are you a priestess by any chance? And I was like, actually, I am. I had just found my book from 2005 that said, hey, you've been inducted into, and I said, wow, I forgot that I had done this.
Huh.
And
Wow.
it was within like 2 or 3 days. Like I found the book. And I was like, oh yeah. And then here comes this lady and I'm like, yes, I am actually. Thank you. And then I sent you a message and now here we are.
Yeah, yeah, it
So,
really is. And you know what's really also interesting in terms of that and the serendipity when it's spirit led is it is a kind of a spirit or spirit led thing who ends up on the summit. Now, I have some certain criterion, which isn't just about list size. It
mhm.
is about diversity, and it
Okay.
is about. But within that, there are priestesses all over the world holding the field for New Earth right now, doing sacred work in one way, shape, or form or another.
Hmm.
And so, for me, I really want six of the seven, the planet's seven continents. Represented. I
Perfect.
want women of all different ethnicities
Hmm.
because I literally feel like we have to come in and really model for so many different people all over the world what it means to be a sacred feminine leader, which to me is another phrase for priestess.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting to see who ends up coming in and who doesn't, or who can't at the last minute, or finds out about it when it's like I'm getting emails that we're promoting it right now. Oh,
Hmm.
can I be on your summit? Wow, no, I mean we're like doors are way closed for that. we're
Right. Maybe
it's
next year.
months of preparation.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it is but many things happen like what happened with us where there's like someone connects us, or I'm going through Facebook and all of a sudden I see someone's picture and I get the like
Right. Yeah.
that pull.
Yeah. It's so interesting. That's exactly
Yeah.
what happens. You're like, hmm,
Yeah.
click. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden
exactly.
a whole new world opens up and you're like, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really good though, because this is how, this is to just show people that spirit is little tiny nudges. It's not
Yes.
like I could have easily missed this opportunity with you. Very
Hmm.
easily. I could have been in a bad mood and decided that the lady in my inbox was a scammer, or that I didn't like her tone of address on Facebook or whatever, and never
Right.
reached out to you. And then what?
Wow. Yeah, I love that too. That spirit, it's whispers, it's the still small voice. It's not the big noisy thing that makes you want to crunch, but contract.
Right.
It's usually curious, expansive, that kind of energy.
Yeah, you got to be curious and you got to be willing to just go down that path. right? Like I used to call it impulse runs when I was reality testing the law of attraction, and you would get an impulse, and the goal is to follow every impulse, no matter what, for as long as you can, to see what the surprise is that the universe will gift you, right?
Ooh,
And
I love that.
it was so good for me to help with my manifesting skills and to understand that I was safe, and the universe was actually supporting me and was listening, right? Because oftentimes people think this woo-woo stuff, you can't test it. Well, this is how you test it in reality. And one day I just followed the nudges, looking for more joy, and found like the most glorious field of sunflowers. It was just glorious. And it was 15 minutes from my house. I would have never found it otherwise. There was just no reason for it to be there. Best day ever best day ever for a photographer. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So, I really want people to understand that following those impulses are how you strengthen your connection, and listening so that you're able to hear.
Right. Yeah. And people receive it in different ways. Like listening is literally how I literally hear words.
Right.
At times, it's not that it's coming outside of me. I've had that occasionally, but it's more it emerges within me. Whereas other people see images or get impressions or have a sensed feeling. These are the clairs, right? The clairsentient and audient and all that stuff. But I have another story about that, which is when all of this stuff started, all of the COVID and the lockdowns and everything. I got very clear auditory, clairaudient guidance. Get land with water. Get land with water. And the serendipity, I'm recording this with you now, and I ran the whole summit this year from my new home I call it my little house in the big forest, where I own my own water now. And I have 5.5 acres in the middle of 3.3 million acres of national forest.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, and the way it unfolded, I mean, there was effort on my part. Getting a mortgage as a self-employed person is challenging, but the stick-to-itiveness, but the whole way it came about, the discovery of this, the price of it relative to what, real estate has skyrocketed, right?
Right.
It was when I first got the message, I had almost no money. I was like, get land with water, right? Now I'm like, it unfolded one thing after another. But like you said, I kind of kept following the nudges. Like, I think I have to go look here. I think I have to go look in New Mexico. I feel like I have to go. And I kept following them. I think this realtor, I have to contact her. I feel something here. And that's how it all came about.
And it's so funny that you mentioned water, because I feel that that's an important conversation in general. Because I had the same move from spirit to go live near water. So, and I was at the time living in a place that was landlocked. So in 2020, I moved into an apartment that is 0.25 miles from the St. Johns River, which is the biggest river here in Florida. So,
wow.
And it's the one that meets the ocean. So if I go 45 minutes to the beach, there's river on one side and there's ocean on the other. So I'm literally it's so beautiful. So beautiful. And this is a year of water in Chinese astrology. And that is a big deal for us as we are talking about the rise of the feminine. These are like the birthing waters right now. So a lot of what we're seeing in the news and in the media is related to the upheaval of birth,
Yes, agreed. Yes.
And it has to do, like you were saying, with the matrilineal, like indigenous peoples from all over the world, because they all had basically matriarchal societies prior to being colonized and having a different way of life forced on them. Back then it was your elder was going to be a woman.
Yes. Wow. Good.
And those things were passed down from woman to woman. So honestly, when you're looking for the genetic energy behind the change of, our birth, our rebirth as the new earth, it's going to come through the indigenous peoples, and it's going to come through women. It's not necessarily going to come through the men folk. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not going to aid us. I'm not saying that we're not going to have men folk with more feminine energy in them, because that's a lot of stuff that we're getting.
Possible too. Yeah.
Right. So, we're talking about the energy of a thing, not the body part of a thing. Right.
Right.
So,
Correct.
So that's the rise of that. And we're seeing feminine energy and masculine bodies so that we have more people on our side. And it's a really fascinating transition that we're in right now.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing out. I forgot it's a water tiger year, so the birthing waters. I certainly have felt it deeply. I mean, I love where I live, and I do own my own well water, and I'm in a very dry part of the American Southwest. So, this I've been craving water, and literally, like I went to Texas, southern Texas, for a winter vacation just to walk along the ocean every day,
It's
just to back and forth and hear the waves and feel that that flow, that motion,
right.
kind of like what's behind you there,
Right. Just that
but without the palm
constant
trees.
ebb and flow of the sand and the water. It's necessary. And I think we're not the only ones who are feeling it. I think anybody who's kind of got a pull to this sort of thing is kind of craving that water. I think it's definitely one of the ascension symptoms that people don't recognize. Oftentimes when they're getting headaches and they get overheated, you need a saltwater
Mm.
bath, my friend. You need a saltwater
Oh,
bath. Yeah.
wow. And I would, that's a good point. And I also wanted to acknowledge that what you said about that when you where you live, you can go down to be between a freshwater river and the saltwater sea. And what came to mind is like, what kind of like electromagnetic, or not more magnetic, what is the energy there? I think that feels
It's
like a
powerful.
potent place to do sacred work to me.
It is. And I've done some sacred work down there because there's actually a pier that is all of these, not necessarily man-made rocks, but they're just chunks of rock that they put to separate it. And you can
Right.
stand on the rocks and 1 foot is literally on the ocean and 1 foot is literally in the river. And it's the most
Wow.
fascinating. And you feel it. You just feel like all of the culmination of the energy merging in that spot. And the way that the water is set, you can walk far through to it until the tide comes in. Then all of a sudden there's no place there anymore. And it's
Oh, wow.
magnificent. It's magnificent. So I've done some rituals there, given some offerings up to the ocean and to the river, and
Uh-huh.
spoke to the different deities and orishas that deal with that because primo. It's
Yeah,
a primo
primo.
energy spot. Yeah. Don't you love that though? A good energy spot, when you find it, you'll just kind of wander into one. You ever do that? You ever like wander into a place that you feel like has a portal and you'll just, wait a
Yeah.
minute, what was that? I'm like,
Yeah, I have a place here in the forest that one day I was walking and I just sat down between these, they're called alligator juniper trees. There's a little, like a cluster of them. And I just went into silence, which I have a pretty busy mind. So when it just goes, I know something is working. And I've since turned it into a little magical fort out of just sort of found tree branches and stuff. And now it's like my sacred place where I go to commune with the plants.
that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So, what is your favorite thing about doing the Rise of the Priestess seminar?
Yeah. Well, my favorite thing is, oh, it's tough to say. I mean, I get to speak with women of power all over the world who bring so much wisdom, insight, and diversity of perspective, of cultural history, of lineage, all of that. So that's probably the best thing. And I have to say, the other best thing is getting the feedback from women afterwards who attended and how it's changed their life. I have literally received feedback from women that it saved their life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Right.
So there's nothing really that tops that.
Tops that, right. That's the
Yeah.
best feeling.
Yeah.
That is the best feeling.
But there is a third thing, which is the money that we donate to a charitable cause that I vetted, which is uh, all 3 years now. These are causes that are led by women
Okay.
that are very much grassroots, very visionary, very 5D in terms of, they're really new earth paradigm uh, charitable organizations of some kind, or just organizations that could use a leg up with some money. So
Right.
being able to give a hunk of money, the last 2 years we've raised $8,000
Oh,
for
that's wonderful.
each year. I'm hoping to do that and beyond this year.
Wonderful.
That is a huge blessing that I get to, because I struggled with money for most of my life. So to be able to give $8,000, I get it. People are bisquillionaires, right? I'm not like that. But to give $8,000 away to an organization, the first year was in Thailand, the second year in Trinidad, and this year South Africa.
Okay.
It's like that. We know that money is going to do so
So
much there
much.
compared to what it can do here in our country, in the United
Right.
States. So
Right.
yeah, so lots of wonderful things about the summit each year.
So what's the name of this organization that you're donating to?
Yeah,
Let's
it's
talk about
called the Institute of Africanology,
that.
and it
Okay.
was founded by a woman whose name is Mamawa Ashantiwa Ngidi. And I interview her. She is one of the speakers.
Okay, wonderful.
Because after I talked to her, she is so dynamic and incredible. This is her brainchild.
Okay.
And the story, you'll get to hear the story when you watch it. But basically, she wanted to see a way for the African people to reclaim their self-image as a powerful, mighty, creative, beautiful, amazing people with a long history of leaders and wisdom keepers. And colonialism devastated much of the African continent, and it's been a long, slow recovery. And South
Right.
Africa in particular, with apartheid, the consciousness has been such that it's been very hard for young people to get ahead. And I'm not one of those people who believes, and I've sort of said this a lot, maybe it's inappropriate, I don't know, but where I've seen and heard stories of people kind of going into Africa and saying, we're coming into your village to build a school. Well, you know what? We have to honor other cultures and what they determine they need. So this came to me recommended because I put out into my big network, I'm looking for a charitable organization. So this beautiful woman went to a village near where she lives and spoke to the village elders to ask if she could use the school that was abandoned for this vision she has. And she thought it would be months of back and forth batting it around. They gave her a bunch of land and the property, and the whole village. They went in. They'd clean one room, put a project in there, or an activity. Clean another room, put an activity, and the goal is self-esteem, self-sustainability, and they do things like provide kids with books written by African people. Starting a bee farm, and the children, so if you have a beehive, then when that honey comes, it's going to have your name on it. So teaching them self-reliance, entrepreneurship. They're growing cabbages. I mean, there's so many things in this organization, and it is run, get this was the kicker for me, that was like the icing on the cake. It is run by a board of elder women. Women at the center. The wise women of that community are the ones who are visioning, planning, and establishing and making the decisions. So everything about this organization was like, wow, I hope we get lots of people who buy the summit, because then we can give them lots of money. They have never received one penny of funding. Not one.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah. They're doing it themselves. So now if we contribute, they can do things like, create more outbuilding structures and just build more infrastructure support, because this is a template then that can be modeled elsewhere all over the continent.
Right.
And all over the world, really, because there's nothing about the model that's not applicable to what we need, which is grassroots restructuring of society as the old systems collapse.
Absolutely. And that's basically that's beautiful, because that brings us full circle to the theme of Rise of the Priestess this year, which is New Earth Rising. And what does that look like for us? See, the thing that I find that people who aren't in the spiritual community in general don't seem to understand is that they're clinging to the past and the way things have been. And those in the spiritual community are like, burn it down. Let it go. Let it go. That hasn't worked for like 3,000 years. Let's try something new.
Let's try something new.
Please,
I think
I think all of us are just screaming like, please, let's try something new.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I love that they're working on a sustainable model, and it's actually already in progress. It's not that they've got their hands out asking for us to start the funding. They've already put it together. The land has been given, you know, and it's what we actually needs to do. It's the same thing as the like tiny house movement here in the US, and like, and all of the awesome self-sustaining farming methods that people are starting to pick up, because realistically, and we can just go to the grocery store now and look at gas prices.
Yep. Yeah.
The things that we are doing are not working.
Right.
For us.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so the theme for this year came about because I was starting to get very strong guidance, and I started seeing it in other, you know, sister friends and spiritual leaders, that all of the chaos of the last 2 years it's not going to stop, because those who have benefited from us being asleep and basically little worker bee enslaved worker bees, basically they ain't gonna stop until we withdraw their food, which is our energy and our attention, our fear, all of that, speaking at the energetic level and also the literal. So the guidance was withdraw attention, pivot, and build the bridge to new earth, even as you're crossing it. And that's the theme. Build the bridge to new earth, even as we cross it. And then I went about looking and calling in priestesses who were doing that. And so we've got a diversity this year, not only of, you know, heritage and culture and nationality, but literally like what women are doing. So we have women who are really revisioning how to build new villages and new community, alternative building, hemp building, alternative farming, alternative medicine, natural, like really earthy stuff, and then also very spiritual, metaphysical stuff as well. So we really have a broad spectrum this year, where I feel like no matter who you are, you're going to find someone or someones in this summit this year that you're going to be like, right, I want to learn more from her. I want to support that. I want to take what I just learned and bring that into my own life.
Perfect. I love that. And I'm really excited for this year's summit. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm really glad that it's always reassuring to me when I hear other people in the spiritual community affirm what I'm hearing from spirit, because don't get me wrong, sometimes they show you stuff that's on like a massive level, and you're like, come on. Nah.
Yes, totally. Who, me?
You're like,
yeah.
Really, that many people? Nah. Right. And then, you know, I know that a few years ago, I don't know if this happened to you, but I know probably around like 2017-ish, a lot of us in the spiritual community thought that all of this was going to be happening in our heads, and it wasn't going to come out into the physicality, right? The way that it is now. Right. So remember, it was like, oh, people aren't going to die. They're going to have, you know, metaphysical deaths, and they're going to be reborn, and it's going to be rainbows and unicorns. Right. And then, like, the harsh reality of 2019 kicked in, and it was like, ooh, can we navigate this for real? Because you guys weren't joking. You know, and so it's always good for me to hear from other people that those same like pushes and impulses and things coming on. Because although I believe that I'm listening, I like to keep myself humble and double check. You know, because sometimes the stuff that spirit tells you is like overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And also, we do have to remember that we have been in a deep, deep state of density and sleep. And so even those of us who've had several years of following intuitive guidance, there's still that feeling sometimes where when you get a big download that seems very radically different than the lived experience, we have to remember we're kind of on our training wheels still when it comes to following guidance. We really are learning still. We're remembering, I would say.
Yeah, I always say we're relearning. We're relearning our own space and our own selves and our own divine paths. And real quick, one last thing before we wrap this up, I would like to ask, do you feel, since you've been at this for what, 37 years now, right?
Yeah, almost 38.
Don't you feel like things are more, like the emotional side of it is more pronounced and more kind of distressing in the upheaval as of right now? Because I feel like we had padding up until like 2017, 2018. It was bad, but it was okay,
Yeah.
you know, people were still able to stick their heads into the sand and, you know, bury it. And
Yeah.
now it's like the Band-Aid is ripped off, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is because we have to see it in order to clear it and heal it. We have so much plasmic light coming in. You know, our solar system is now moving through what's called the photon belt. This
Mhm.
is not woo woo. This is scientific fact.
Right.
And so the amount of light and frequency increase on our planet is literally, like, I use the image of like a glass or a jar. Like if you have the
Mhm.
glass here and there's a bunch of, let's say there's dirt here and it's all settled to the bottom nice and still. And then
Mhm.
this is water up here. Well, the light is the increased frequency is shaking, shaking, shaking. So the water gets all muddy, and then
Right.
eventually it shakes so much it starts blowing out the top, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of where we are. And so all of the unprocessed material that we've buried individually and collectively is coming and shaking out. And
Yeah.
that means for those who are, even those of us who've done a lot of inner work, it's like you look at things in the world, you're like, oh, process, alchemize. Okay, forgive, prayer, meditation. You know, take
Right.
the styrofoam baseball bat and beat the bed. Whatever we need
Right.
to do.
Whatever you need to do.
But those who don't have any tools at all,
Oof.
they're in big time fear because they're much easier to control because they just
Yeah.
watch the TV and they believe it all because they can't discern yet because they're so plugged up themselves with their own energetic buried material or their
Right.
fear or the propaganda. Also, it's like they're holding down the beach ball. Like, what would it be like to face my own shadows? Oh my God, I don't think I could do it. But the frequencies are demanding
They're
this
demanding it. Yeah.
at an individual and a collective level. So, yeah, I mean, intensity wise, we've dialed it up from like a 2 to a 20.
Yes. Okay. See, so I'm not crazy because I thought to myself, I said, man, it wasn't this bad in 2017 or 2012. And, you know, I speak to other people and I'm like, okay, we're doing our work, right? Like I thought I was doing okay. I thought I'd boxes my shadows and no. I mean, I've talked to people who are really solid. Like, I'm like, y'all are really solid. And they're like, nope, this is horrendous. I'm holding on by the skin of my teeth. I just got slammed with something. And I was just like, okay, you know, and I'm like, okay. So we're not allowed to miss it is basically what I've seen from Spirit
Mm.
is that right now, you know, the kid gloves are off. We're out of
Yes.
Pisces. We're transitioning into Aquarius, and you want to be innovative and curious and faith-based.
Ah,
You really
well
need to be
said,
grounded.
summary
Yeah,
of Aquarius. Yes.
that's it. I mean, it's literally that. It's curiosity, innovation, and then be grounded in the knowing that, like, if you follow these nudges, they're going to get you there no matter what else is happening, no matter how crazy it feels, how crazy it looks, whatever you lose, whoever you lose.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, we're dealing with people losing so many people at once, and
Yes.
that's a whole other podcast. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is intense. And this is where our spiritual connection is so important. We have to remember that we're divine eternal beings having a temporary experience in form,
Right.
and that it's the attachment that will create the suffering.
Mm.
And yes, we do have to go through grieving and mourning. Sometimes that grieving and mourning is just realizing that the paradigm that we believed in was a complete fake.
Yeah.
That in itself is like, what? That's what 2020 was for me. A couple other things I wanted to say was one is 2012. What I've discovered, and you've probably seen this too,
Mm.
that was the big wake up. Many people woke up in 2012. And we thought that was the shift of the ages. That was the awakening to prepare to have more conscious, aware light workers on the planet for what is coming down now, which is
Right.
the old structures. And they're going down with a fight.
Yeah, they are.
And they've got all the military and all the propaganda of the media and all the
Mm-hmm.
money.
Yeah.
So, but we have something that is beyond all of that, which is the light of love. And that's what we have to remember.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm really so glad to say that you said that because right now, one of the things that is coming more into the front and what is keeping us together is the collective consciousness. The simple fact that so many more people understand that the collective consciousness, first off, is a thing. B, you can tap into it, right? So like
Yeah.
imagine that we're having these conversations, like, wow. So that is helping. That's our internet. that's our
Yes.
internet. You know, that's we the people's internet. That's our mycelia, if you like to think of the idea of like a global mushroom ring.
Yes,
That's how
the
I kind of think
ozone.
about it, you know. And I'm glad that you mentioned 2012, because truthfully, when I had the vision of what was going on, I didn't do my full awakening until 2014, but it all started in 2012. And in 2012, what happened was, what was explained to me was that Gaia was going to go through a birthing process. And they said that it would take between 7 and 15 years. And
Oh, wow.
if you run through this based on some of the other shamanic principles, they talk about a birthing process, a dark time of about 10 to 15 years. And we're in it right now. If you literally look, we've passed the halfway mark. We're 10 years in. We've got about 5 years to go. And these are the birthing waters. And you're literally catching the whole swing of Gaia bringing herself into this new level and bringing us with her, you know? And it's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
It sure has. And this is really, I think, a value for us to really deepen into our connection with spirit and with Gaia.
Absolutely.
I've gotten many messages from her because I walk in the forest almost every day to come close to me. And I channel too. This is something I don't talk about a lot because I mostly channel in my private community. But I've actually channeled Gaia, and she says, come close to me. Connect your belly to mine. This is how you will know where to be, how to be, and when to be as my body shifts and adjusts in these changing years.
I'm so glad you said that, because I also channel her, but I don't talk about it either because it can be overwhelming, as you know. But I've been getting the same thing. It's like, come outside, sit on the ground. And then even 5 years ago, it was a big thing to go free bleeding, you know, release back into the earth, right? So that's part of our problem. Our earth is diminished and depleted because our old practices where we would throw our food, organic food, back to the earth to replenish her, we're not doing any of those things. And people don't realize how that skews us.
Yeah, to say nothing of the glyphosates, the GMOs, all of that.
The pesticides and all the other stuff. Right. But just the simple act of defecating and putting your food back into the earth, which would enrich the soil. We don't, even that is so far lost now, you know?
Yeah, now they chemicalize everything. And granted, I mean, like in cities and stuff, you certainly wouldn't want poop piles, but
no, definitely not. Right.
But to the point of, there are those of us who we're almost like acupuncture needles in different parts of Gaia, bringing these sacred practices, ceremony, the blood, letting our blood bleed on her, you know, putting our bodies on her. This is part of that. I would say certainly the sacred work of the priestess, and I know brothers do their own honoring of Gaia as well. That is, we have to come back into attunement with her. These body-mind vehicles are made to be with Gaia.
1,000%.
Yeah, they're not made to live on Mars or anywhere else. They don't need to be genetically modified to survive things that are natural here.
Right.
But we do need to come into remembrance and alignment with her and with our own organic nature, really.
Right. We need to get back into the cycle of things, you know, and understand that we are also part of the cycle and stop acting like we are separate from the cycle. I think that's one of the biggest things that we lost when we lost the matrilineal and matriarchy of the medicine women, was not understanding the full cycle and our part in the cycle. When we stepped out of that is when we broke nature.
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
like I have really heavy feelings about that.
Yeah,
I'm
I really feel that, and and the heartbreak of that over so many generations, and this call that so many women and men feel around this earth to return to the cycle of life. It's like it's healing our lineage as well. You know, our family lines. It's returning so much of what we need in order to continue as a planetary family.
And I think that these summits and the rest of the summits that other people are putting on, these are all the things that help us bring ourselves closer to getting back to balance, because what we're experiencing is a massive imbalance. And I want to just say this to anybody who's watching and listening, that this is not hatred towards men because we're uplifting the feminine, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because that's always like the tussle. We're not tussling. Men are important also. It's just that the imbalance has been towards women, and we can't have that anymore. That's it.
Yeah. You mean towards men, the imbalance.
But yeah, the imbalance, what's been towards us because we've been the lesser for the longest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So the pendulum has been
The
swinging.
pendulum has to swing back up. And so for us to come
does.
into balance, the women are now being lifted up. And
Yeah.
that's how we're going to do it. And we all win when women are lifted up. That's the real fact of the matter.
Yes.
We
Because
all win.
everybody is a child of a mother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if we can heal what makes women be horrible to men and what makes men horrible to women, we can finally talk about actual unity consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but until then, until we have those important conversations, until we do the shadow work, until we bring up the deep, dark secrets, you know, we're going to be stuck here for a little while, but we got 5 more years according to the blackout.
Wow. 5 more years. Whoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
May we be held in the loving arms of our divine Mother, Father, God.
Yeah. That's all you can ask for during these times, and just hope that you're the one paying attention to those nudges so that you stay on the pathway to the new earth. That's basically it. We anchor it in through us, through our belief, and through our unconditional love and service. So
beautiful. Wow.
Yep. That was fantastic, Dawn. I just want to thank you so much for joining me today on Gaia Soars. Everyone, you can find Dawn. Tell us where we can find you, Dawn.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the summit, you go to returnofthepriestess.com/Kimrâh. And that's how you find us. And it's absolutely free. You register and you'll have access to the full series. It's 2 weeks plus a live opening and closing ceremony, 32 interviews. And if you would like to purchase it and have lifetime access after it's over, you're welcome to do that, because you know where 50% of that's going to go.
Exactly.
So, but even if that's out of your budget right now, or it doesn't feel aligned, or you're contributing to other places in your life, then come and join us for the summit. Come and listen to those speakers who you feel aligned with. And if someone doesn't align for you, that's fine. The diversity is extraordinary, particularly this year. So we would love to have you.
Yay, I'm so excited. And once again, thank you so much for having me on Return of the Priestess this year. And thank you for coming on my show. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you. And thank you for having us on another episode of Gaia Soars. Y'all know where to find me. I'm Kimrâh Minuty, your friendly neighborhood Ascension coach. And I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed rest of your day.